All right, y'all. I am live on Facebook and YouTube, and now I've got to go live on Instagram. All right, there we go. And now I've got to tell my peeps that I am live. So hold on. Let me do just that. Now, hopefully, all my peeps are subscribed to my channel, so you get a notification when new content drops or when I'm live streaming like I am now. Remember, I come on every Friday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. So you know when I'm going to be on. So let me see. Let my folks know that I'm live. And we're going to get started with reviewing this trailer. And I have quite a few tweets I'm going to review as well because Twitter was just blowing up when the trailer dropped yesterday. And a lot of people said a lot of profound things. And so I want to be sure that I talk about them because some of the stuff people said was just so on point. It was just so on point. And I wanted to be sure I review it because I knew I had a lot to say, but I'm like, I'm going to have to save it for my review because it's not one of those quick conversations. It would be nice if it was one of them quick conversations, but it is not. It is one of them conversations where, because there's so much in it, and so much that people don't want to understand. There's a whole history here that we're dealing with. And so, but anyway, we're going to get into it. Okay. Now I sped the trailer up because we don't need no copy wrongs on this channel. I'm not trying to get no copy wrongs. So I sped the trailer up, so it's going to be sped up a little bit, and I'm going to be talking along the way. So I'm going to pause it just so you know what's happening. Because again, it's a lot. It's a lot happening at once. And some of the things are going to be lost on non-comic fans. And I know people think that doesn't matter. I know some people think that doesn't matter, but it does matter. It does matter. There's a reason that these characters have been popular and been around since the 60s. Now, I know their popularity waxes and wanes. You don't have to tell me that. I know nothing hits its peak and just stays peak and then never goes away. I know. Oh, good morning. Good morning, Kenneth. Good to see you. So I know that nothing hits its peak and stays there. I understand that. You don't have to tell me that. I get that. But what I'm saying is they have endured, and they tend to endure from generation to generation. And there's a reason, or there are reasons for that. So when you don't know that, or you dishonor that, then it changes the game. Okay? So first, we're going to go through the trailer. Again, it's sped up. I'm going to be pausing as we go. And then I have a lot of other stuff to talk about because, of course, the standout issue was female Silver Surfer because, of course, it was. So let me pull the trailer up and we will go from there. All right, you should be seeing it on your screen now. Let me get myself in the proper position. Okay. Do I like that? No. I like that better. No, we'll go with that. Hold on, I got to blow the screen up because I want it full screen. There we go. Okay. All right, so here we go. Again, sped up.
Wow, folks, we all know the story. 4 brave astronauts head up into space.
Okay, now that right there, starting off right off the bat. I do not believe that's a good choice. Do you know why? Because everything about how and why they went into space looks like it's being glossed over. And if you don't understand that, you want to understand the impact of them getting their powers. Remember, the Fantastic Four were created in the 60s. The obsession then was America beating the Russians to space. And so Reed Richards in particular was obsessed with beating Russia to space. So he constructed a rocket on his own, kind of on the side. They did not get official NASA clearance or government clearance. They broke into the Space Launch Facility and commandeered the rocket and took off. Okay? All along the way, Ben was warning him about the cosmic rays. Ben was the voice of reason, that Reed was stretching again too far, pushing the boundaries, and establishes Reed Richards' character as someone who gets obsessed with his scientific projects and doesn't always really think about the ramifications or the fallout. That is exactly who Reed Richards is. So that's why how they got into the ship and how they got into space is important. And Ben was the voice of reason, and he refused to go. Susan called him a coward. Ben was stunned by that because Ben was also secretly in love with Susan. He was in love with his best friend's girl. And he got so mad when she said that, that's what made him decide to go ahead on and pilot the rocket. So now you can see with that backdrop on a rocket built on the side in an unsanctioned space flight and all kind of tempers flaring while they was going, you can see that adds weight and gravitas to them getting their powers from this fateful trip. It was not this sanctioned thing. It was not all these lights, camera, action. It wasn't, a news. It wasn't any of what the trailers. It's not that. This changes the whole vibe. Do you understand that? There's a reason these stories have endured. There's a reason that they're beloved in every generation. But when you make it seem like it was this public thing, this sanctioned thing, everybody was behind them, this thumbs up kind of thing, that's not what happened. All right, let's keep watching.
And come back forever changed.
This car?
Our city?
Okay. Now, I'm glad, on the one hand, that the kids are cheering for Ben. But that's not what happened at first. First of all, they're using a more later developed version of Ben, because when Ben first changed into the thing, he basically looked like a mud monster, an orange mud monster, and Susie was the one that called him the thing. And so when they did their famous Fantastic Four forehand, bond swear, Ben said, "I ain't Ben no more. I'm what Susie called me the thing." Ben was angry. Ben was ashamed of himself. Ben was sullen and melancholy. Ben would sit in the darkness. Ben couldn't look at himself in the mirror. And Ben walked around with the weight of his transformation and what it had done to his life on him all the time. And his anger at Reed for what had happened. So he didn't become the ever-loving blue-eyed thing until later in the comic series, where he accepted what he was, but also his looks changed because he didn't look like that. It's not his original look. So again, when you skip past all that and just go to he's famous and the kids love him and pick up a car, and I'm happy that Ben is happy, but it skips past a major part of his development as a character. Ben had to get to that point. He was not at that point right away. So maybe they do show it in the film, but I'm saying by presenting the trailer this way, you get precisely zero sense of that. You understand that? And once again, that takes away from the weight and the gravitas and the backbone, the meat of the story. All right, let's keep watching.
Our planet owe a debt to these intrepid souls. And while we can never repay them, we can certainly celebrate.
Thank you, Fantastic Four. Thank you.
Thank you, Fantastic Four.
Please welcome the Fantastic Four.
Okay. Now, it is true that they became celebrities. One of the things that Stan Lee did that was unusual was that they didn't have secret identities. So that's one of those things where it had greater impact in its time, because that would be something that wouldn't make a lot of sense or a lot of difference now, today's day and age. But at the time, remember that Batman and Superman were created in the late 30s. Everything about superheroes up to that point had been about the dual identity, about them having a civilian identity that they kept hidden from their friends and loved ones and their place of employment. But when danger struck, when trouble was around, or there was a crime mystery to solve, they would spring into action as their costumed alter ego. So Stan Lee went against that narrative, and yes, Simon and Kirby too, went against that narrative and made them have no masks. So again, like I said, the reason that's important here is because they're setting this in the pseudo 60s. This is in the quasi 60s, but not our 60s. So they're trying to have it all ways. But if you're going to use anything like the 60s, then it was a big deal to have metahumans, superpowered people who weren't hiding their faces. So, so once again, if you don't understand that background, just skip over all that. Also, let me say here visually, Ben, this is one of the things that got wrong with the Alba Evans movie. Ben is supposed to be taller than everybody. Ben is supposed to be around 7, 8, maybe 9 feet tall. Okay. And Johnny looked like he in junior high school. But we're going to get through the trailer and then I'm going to cook some more. It's going to be some cooking today.
Herbie, how's that sauce looking? Okay. That is fantastic.
You're late.
What do you mean?
What do you mean, what do I mean? You're late for dinner.
Yes, we are.
You late?
I just said that.
Are you pregnant?
What? You're going to be the best mom in the world. And you are going to be the best dad. Just kidding. You are out of your depth. We are going to be the best uncles ever.
Okay. I'm quasi happy that Sue is pregnant, but I don't know if she's going to have Franklin or Valeria first. And also, I read somewhere that Franklin might be trans. So it's not going to be the Franklin from the comics. I also read that he might be the one, if you don't know anything about Franklin from the comics, he's one of the most powerful characters in Marvel. He has reality-changing powers. So it might actually be him that saves the world from Galactus, but I'm getting ahead. Also, if you notice, Sue is still speaking with a bit of her accent. Vanessa Kirby's accent on Sue, if you notice, is coming through if you pay attention to it. You can hear it. Let me pull that back and rewind it. And Ben's voice ain't right either. It doesn't have to be a Chickless impersonation, but he sounds like regular Ben. And we need to understand, I know this is comic book physics. Did you hear me say that? This is comic book physics, but his vocal cords are coated in orange rock now. I don't think his internal organs are completely unscathed. I don't think it's just his skin. But even if it is, he shouldn't sound the same as the Thing as he did when he was Ben, as far as I'm concerned. Now that been spoiled by Chiklis's version, so I'll admit that that's a bias. But you can hear Vanessa Kirby's accent coming through.
Okay. That is fantastic.
You're late.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? What do I mean? You're late for dinner.
Yes, we are.
You late?
Yeah, yes, we are. You hear it?
I just said that.
Are you pregnant?
What? You're gonna be the best mom in the world, and you are gonna be the best dad. Just kidding. You are out of your depth. We are gonna be the best uncles ever.
Okay, is it just me or this dude just weak? Just don't feel like Johnny to me. Maybe it's just me, I don't know, but it's not doing nothing for me. But anyway. Also, I'm going to say, I hate these reverse color costumes. I've been thinking about it. What it is has been bothering me about their visual. These costumes. But I'm going to get to that later.
We can do this. Nothing's going to change.
Are you the protectors of this world?
Yes, we are.
Your planet is now marked for death.
Okay. Now, this was the biggest controversy coming out of the trailer. This is what blew up Twitter yesterday, and we're going to talk about it extensively. A female silver surfer. We're going to talk about the references from the comics. We're going to talk about why. Why would they do this? But already the vibe feels off. Her showing up like that, especially with that, that voice. Because remember, Lawrence Fishburne did the voice of Silver Surfer in Rise of the Silver Surfer, the second Alba Evans movie. This voice doesn't feel like it has a lot of weight to me. It sounds a little bit girly. So it sounds kind of funny. And this is supposed to be kind of a solemn moment. And I'm like, who is this? But anyway.
Yes, we are.
Your planet
Wait,
protectors of this
wait.
world. Are you the protectors of this world?
Yes, we are.
Your planet is now marked for death.
It's my fault. I stretched the bounds of space. And they hurt.
Are we safe?
I don't know.
Okay, is this the smartest man in the world? Is this the man prepared for anything? Is this the man that would know about the ultimate nullifier? If you know in the comics, that's how Reed beat Galactus the first time. Reed Richards got in Galactus' face with a device that would completely destroy all of reality. And Reed was like, you're not taking Earth. You're not going to consume Earth. I will wipe all of this out before I let you destroy my home planet. So this is all or nothing. And Galactus couldn't believe it. Neither could the Watcher. But anyway, does Pascal strike you like he's that guy?
There's not enough time.
I'm not giving up. We will face this together. We will fight it together. As a family. It has to be us.
Yeah, okay. The point of a teaser trailer is to set a vibe and get you excited about seeing the movie. I'm having the opposite reaction to both of those. I don't like this particular vibe, and it doesn't make me want to see the movie anymore. Finally, some shots of Reed stretching, because we have never seen that before. I don't know why. We've seen everybody else use their powers, and we're just now seeing this, but okay. Now, oh Lord, I keep stopping on the black frames. Now, in the comics, their costumes are normally a darker blue with, a lighter blue, but not that light, a lighter blue with black trim. When they came back from the negative zone on one trip, the colors had flipped, and they had the white trim and it was a darker kind of blue, but it wasn't this combination of something that's almost powder blue and white. And I just don't like it. It's just not working for me. So I'm not necessarily saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's not working for me. It feels cartoony. It feels, I don't know how to describe it. It just feels off to me.
We will protect you.
Also, let me point out, I may have said this before, but it bears repeating here. Those of you that know the comics know that Sue did not get her force fields right away. All that Sue got was the ability to turn invisible, and one of her lesser remembered powers to turn other things invisible, because she can do that too. She did not have her force fields when she first transformed. That was added later. That's when she became the most dangerous and most powerful member of the team. It's them force fields that make a difference. She did not come out to Rocket being able to do that. Once again, just so you know. So again, there's a progression here for all of the characters. A progression here, just like with Johnny. He looked, now I think he does it in the trailer, he looked more like kind of a lumpy humanoid size ball of flame, but it was kind of indistinct, looking like, you know, a human-sized spark. And as time went on, that form got more refined, and he looked like a man on fire. But I think they do that here. So I will give them props, at least for that.
We will protect you.
Okay. So that last shot is of Galactus walking through the city. Okay, Undead Nerd says, I do like her shields have rainbows. I've seen that when the lights are on and my TV is off. Don't know how to explain it. It's the light refracting. It's a light refracting. Invisibility is bending light around you so the light doesn't bounce off you so the eyeballs can't perceive it. So it's refraction. That's what's causing the rainbow. Okay, so that's the trailer. And like I said, you know, it doesn't, this is my favorite team. Now, I said this yesterday on Twitter. Let me see if I can pull that tweet up. I will show you where I said it. Okay, here it is. Let me pull it up and I'll show you exactly what I said about the FF so you will understand. You will understand my attitude towards them. Okay? The Fantastic Four, oh, wait a minute. What is this thing? No, I'm not trying to promote. The Fantastic Four is my favorite superhero comics group. It was their comics that my father first bought me when he introduced me to the world of comic books. So I have a lifetime investment and attachment to them. And for this, I apologize not. That's exactly how I feel. I still remember my father taking me. I still remember my father taking me to the newsstand. I still remember the smell of fresh books and fresh magazines. I still remember going there with my dad, and these were the first comics that I read, and it's what got me hooked right away. So I have a very particular attachment to this team. To this day, they're still my favorite comic group, and they're the first family of Marvel. And I'm not apologizing for my lifetime investment and attachment to them. So to see them presented in such a way as this trailer seems to be presenting them, that where the entire vibe is off and Reed is like, well, we'll protect you and all this different kind of stuff. Did you believe it when he said it? Do you believe that Pedro is Reed, the real Reed Richards from the comics? Did you believe that when he said it? Another thing somebody brought up yesterday, which I thought was incredible, was the ages of the actors. Because they're already, see, they were in their 20s. At least Sue was. Let me take that back. At least Sue was. Reed is about 10 to 12 years older than her. And in one of the retcons, one of the burn retcons, he met her as a child, which is really creepy. So she was still really young, and he was a boarder in their house. And so, okay. Dead Nerd is saying, my dad was a comic fan, but he introduced me to the team with the Tim Story movies. They haven't aged well for me, but when I first got into comics, Fantastic Four No More was the first I picked up. And so the ages of the actors, okay, they're already starting on the higher age end. That doesn't necessarily pose a problem per se until you start thinking about more movies over the next 2, 5, 7 years. So Sue was in her 20s. Sue in the comics was canonically about 22. Johnny was like around 19. And Ben was like maybe late 20s or maybe at least 30. And Reed was like 32, at least 10 years older than Sue. But both Reed and Sue look older than that now. So I'm not, talking about ages. I'm talking about practically as the movies go on, how are they going to look playing these roles? That's a consideration as well. So, like I said, that's my history with this team. And it's why I love them so to this day. And I have high nostalgic memories, like I said, of my dad and going to the newsstand. And I just remember every sensory experience, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the feel of a fresh book in your hand. So I'm not apologizing for the way I love this team. And I'm not apologizing for wishing that they could be presented on the screen in such a way that honors them from the comic books. Okay? All right. So now let's deal with, again, the biggest topic from the trailer, which was the female Silver Surfer. And then we're going to get into some tweets, and I might even have time to throw a Reddit post at you. What you need to understand is that the Silver Surfer, as we know it, the Silver Surfer as he first appeared in the comics, the Silver Surfer that's been around as long as the Fantastic Four, is a man named Norrin Radd. Long story short, his story was Galactus came to his planet, his homeworld, and he was married to his wife, Shalabal. Galactus was going to consume their planet. Norrin volunteered his life to save his planet and his wife. He volunteered and said that he would become voluntarily the herald of Galactus to lead Galactus to other worlds to save his world. And Galactus agreed. Long story short, that's how he became the Silver Surfer. That's the surfer that we know. That's a surfer that's been around since the 60s, since he was first created. Now, there are versions of the female Silver Surfer in the comics, but they're very, very brief. They're brief to the extreme. Okay, so let's look at Shalabal. Okay, we're going to show where. Now she's on Earth. Now you should be able to see that now. She's on from Earth 997. If you don't know what that is Earth X. I didn't understand it. Also ruined Shalabal because she's supposed to be a Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy for Norrin. That's right. His wife, the love of his life. She's from Earth X. Now on Earth X, what happened was the story's different. And Shalabal and Norrin Radd were together. But they get with a high evolutionary Franklin Richards, and they continue Galactus. And then what happens is that Shalabal gets transformed into the Silver Surfer along with Norrin. So they're actually the Silver Surfers together. That's where that pick comes from. So that's one example of Shalabal actually being, silver coated and being a surfer herself. There is another. Oh, wait. Also, I want to show you that that only exists in Earth X. I want to show you the appearances of that version of her. 5 appearances. Do you see that? She only appeared in the comics 5 times in the Earth X storyline. Only 5 times as opposed to Norrin Radd being around since the 60s. Okay? 5 times we get to see Shalabal as that version of Silver Surfer. Okay? Now we're going to go to the next female Silver Surfer, and that's Juno. Juno's on a different Earth. Juno's on Earth 29. Can you see that? That should be on your screen now. Pretty sure you can see that. Yeah. So Juno's on a different Earth. Okay. So she's the daughter of Arimathe's, granddaughter of Hercules. Okay. So her origin is rooted in the Hercules mythology and all that. So long story short, she becomes a surfer for the same reason, but she's there to stop Galactus from consuming other planets. But she's in Hercules, Twilight of a God. That's where Juno comes from. Completely different Earth, completely different character from Shalabal. Let's look at her appearances. She appeared 4 times. 4 times. 4 times. Do you get it? 4 times. So they're going to skip over Norrin Radd, the one that's known, the story that's known, the tragedy of his story, and the one that's been around for decades. And they're going to feature a version of the Surfer that, in Shalabal's case, we saw 5 times, and in Juno's case, we saw 4 times. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. That's just unbelievable to me and a lot of other people. So, of course, what is the main argument? Because it's always the same. What is the main argument? The main argument from people that don't know what they're talking about is it's in the comics. But it's in the comics. It's in the comics. Okay. It's in the comics how many times? How many times is it in the comics? Okay. And so that's always this fallback excuse. So we're going to go through that because I saw some mighty powerful tweets concerning that. And I put out a few myself. Okay, I said, here it is, the tweet we've all been waiting for. Her 5-panel appearance. Creating, but it's in the comics. People screaming about it. It's in the comics. Okay? Just because it happens in the comics doesn't mean it was a good thing. Just because it happened in the comics doesn't mean you skip over 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years worth of history. Just because it happens in the comics doesn't mean it needs to be in the feature film. Okay? Just because it happened in the comics doesn't mean it was popular. Okay? Norrin Radd, Silver Surfer, is a legend. He's one of the most beloved characters in the Marvel canon. So they're just going to throw all that out. So that's what I said. The tweet we've been waiting for by Reign of Pride, Powerful Sin. Before anyone complains that Silver Surfer got gender swapped, it is not true. A female version of Silver Surfer exists in the comics. Here's a question I want to look at from Lusciously, one of my followers. He said, why is this bad, but Nick Fury was okay? Your favorite MCU movie is The Winter Soldier, and it is, and Bucky ain't Bucky from the comics. I'm not arguing, just want to understand. Why not apply this logic to Cap's shield, which was not originally straight vibranium? All good questions, all good points. Here's my answer. Nick Fury was Ultimate Nick Fury, who is based on, I don't know if y'all can see that. Let me blow that up. Nick Fury was Ultimate Nick Fury, who is based on Sam Jackson. So if you didn't know that, the Nick Fury in the MCU, wait, I'm just nerdy saying something important here. Knowing Rad, a Defender founder, had his own video game on the NES. Tarantino wanted to make a movie about him. That's how deep Knowing Rad goes. So Nick Fury was Ultimate Nick Fury, who was based on Sam Jackson. So if you don't know anything about the Ultimate universe, that Nick Fury was the son of the original Nick Fury, who was white. They made him black in the Ultimates, but they literally specifically modeled him after Sam Jackson. If you didn't know that. So it wasn't this big leap to have Sam Jackson play him in the movies. I can't stand MCU Bucky, so I don't really care about Bucky 1, Bucky from the comics, because I can't stand him anyway. He just works well as an antagonist to Cap in the movie. It's not the details, it's the motive. Okay? It's not the details, it's the motive. Okay? It doesn't have to be a point-for-point translation like Batman 89 wasn't. There were so many un-Batman like things in that movie, including the Joker killing the Waynes. That ain't from no comic. Okay? Batman did not drop the Joker into the vat of chemicals, by the way. People that saw the Batman 89 movie started thinking that's what happened. That's not what happened. Okay? But they have to get the vibe right, I said, and that's not what this Fantastic Four movie is, which is what we've seen from the beginning. Because from the beginning, with their choice of Pedro Pascal as Reed, which nobody is buying. And then you had the articles, the EW article, about the actors themselves talk about fundamentally playing the characters different. Remember, I said that in the last video. So Vanessa Kirby said she was obsessed with Sue Storm as Malice. If you don't know who that is from the comics, just think about it as Dark Phoenix, except for Sue. But she was being mind controlled. And it brought out the worst in her. She became this leather-clad dominatrix. That's who Malice is. And Vanessa Kirby was like, I'm obsessed with that part of her, so I played her with little of that in her. I'm like, really? That's the anti-Sue Storm. And then Quinn talking about he's playing Johnny Storm as more sensitive or whatever, although he does look like he's immature and a jerk in the trailer. But playing him as more sensitive, and, you know, that's kind of played out nowadays. And so the actors themselves are talking about fundamentally changing the characters. Okay? Why? It's not the details, it's the motive. Why? Because they don't have any respect for the source material. That's why. Because they don't think it makes any difference, which is why they tweak the wrong things, which is why they cast, it's called stunt casting. They cast actors that they think are popular at the time, not actors that are right for the role. They're not interested in making a good book-to-screen translation. Okay? And so that's what I'm saying. It's not the details, it's the motive. It don't have to be a point-for-point translation. It doesn't have to be. Rarely is it a point-for-point translation, but it's getting the vibe right. For example, in Superman the movie, the one that we always refer to as the definitive live-action Superman, that was the first time we saw Krypton as crystalline architecture. Superman the movie, Donner did that, and it stuck. And if you know anything about Superman's mythology is piecemeal. It didn't happen all at once. Like Kryptonite came from the radio show. Like Truth, Justice, and the American Way came from the George Reeves TV show. Like the original version of Superman, all Kryptonians had powers on Krypton. They were a superpowered race of people. There was no yellow sun involved. So Superman's mythology has evolved and been piecemeal, come together at different times, okay? So it's not about the details. It's about the motive. Why are you changing things? Not necessarily what are you changing. And what's the vibe? And from the beginning, since they announced the cast, they made it clear they don't have any respect for the source material. They don't understand who the characters are. And I showed you in the trailer how skipping over such major parts of the character development. I get that they want to set these characters in a way that they're already in motion. I get it. But when you skip past how they got there, you take away the depth of their journey, okay, which is rather ridiculous. Now, I want you to read this tweet here by John Bradford. right beneath. John Bradford said, now he's answering Luscious Lou's question. John Bradford said, because it's them who's doing it, check. We know what they're about and why they're doing it. They aren't doing it to celebrate the character of Shalabal. They aren't doing it to adapt the Earth X storyline. They needed an excuse to do anything subversive and or demoralizing, and there it is. There it is in black and white right in front of you. That's why they're doing what they're doing. Subverting expectations has become the norm. We're going to do stuff just to be different. We're going to do stuff because we know the fans want this to happen. Just like if you've read what the editor at Marvel had to say about Spider-Man and Mary Jane being together, it'll hurt your brain. They're doing it just to be contrary, just to be a contrarian, just to subvert expectations, yet not to tell a good story, not to honor the characters, not even to tell a story that makes sense. Just because we know you want this, we know you want this, we know you want it, psych, we're not going to give it to you, we're going to do the opposite. Just to make you upset, just to be demoralizing. Okay, that's why they're doing it. And I said no lies detected. Okay? Right, so all that other stuff I talked about. Okay? And so some more stuff I want to show you. I want to show you what happens, how people go on the attack with their, and it's always tourists, but they will call you a tourist. Okay? Yeah, I know Sue was undead. I'm reading your comics. I know Sue was more forward, but the original idea of Sue was that one of the reasons she turned invisible was because she felt invisible. Sue was originally an actress, and so she wanted to be seen, but she found herself kind of swept up in the shadow of Reed's adventures. Didn't always feel valued, didn't always feel seen, which is one of the things that Jessica Alba's Sue focused on. That Reed didn't really see her like Sue wanted to be seen. So I'm not saying that she, couldn't hold her own, because she's always been able to hold her own with the team. I'm talking about her as a character, especially the way they're setting it in the 60s when they first started out. She wouldn't be there at this point in their development. Okay? All right. Let me show you this one, because this is what always happens on Twitter. So Lupin says, tourists really go full throttle based off of panels and covers of comics they've never read. Okay? Juno isn't even the first one in the movie version. It's based on the book. His wife was also Silver Surfer. Congrats, tourists. Because the image Pride posted was Juno, who appears in the Hercules Twilight of the Gods series, which I also pointed out. The one in the movie is, the one Pride posted is Juno. There have been multiple female surfers. Always here they come. They're the tourists trying to say comic people are tourists. They're the tourists saying that there's something wrong with us for having expectations. No other genre of movies does that. If you go to see a Jason Statham movie, what do you expect? You expect some to-the-wall action, because that is Statham's vibe. That's his bread and butter. What's wrong with that? What if Statham got out there and cried for 2 hours? What if Statham got out there and he was weak and all he was doing was buying flowers and feeling sorry for himself and sitting somewhere writing in his journal, crying in his room? What would happen then? That's a subversion of expectations. Why don't we do that? Oh, I'm sorry. What about Tom Cruise? What if we went to a Tom Cruise movie and he did no stunts? We go see Mission Impossible and he's on the ground, he's safe, there's no danger at any time. Would we be okay with that? Oh, I'm sorry. We have an expectation going into a Jason Statham movie. We have an expectation going into a Tom Cruise movie. But somehow, when comic fans have expectations going into comic movies, and all of a sudden, we're whiny, we're lame, and then actual tourists come in and call us tourists because we actually know what happens from the comics, and they reach and they pick the most obscure version of characters that appeared 4 or 5 times in one comic series, and they say, but it's in the comics. Lord have mercy. This is common. Now, we're going to get to the best response that I saw. The absolute best response I saw to, but it's in the comics. But before we get there, I have a few more I want to show you. Okay. Okay, let me show you this one by Shady Do-Rags, because it's also legit. Okay, you should see that on your screen. Okay, that's kind of long. I'll just read the first paragraph and then I'll read the TLDR. Assuming this isn't a gender swap known rad, it still comes with all the problems gender swaps do. Mainly the audience now has to ask, why did they choose to do this? And unfortunately, at this point, we've seen an unfavorable answer to this question way too many times to give this specific movie the benefit of the doubt. Boom! That is perfectly said. Okay, it's not a gender swap nor rad from what we understand, but it comes with all the problems, because now you got to ask, why gender swap the Silver Surfer? Why make him a woman? Okay, we've seen an unfavorable answer to this question way too many times to give this specific movie the benefit of the doubt. Skip down to the TLDR. A female Silver Surfer existing in the comics is not a get out of jail free card from the usual gender swapped criticism. Right above that, also, just because something happened in the comics doesn't mean the comics did them well, nor does it mean it's appropriate to use them in an adaptation. See, all that is right. All that is on point. Okay? And this is what we were talking about yesterday on Twitter, because all that is correct. They're doing it just out of spite. They're doing it just to be contrary. Okay? And we've seen that over and over and over again. You heard me say it last time or 2 weeks ago. I forgot the last time I said it. But comic fans have been in an abusive relationship with comic movies since at least 2015, at least 10 years. We've been in an abusive relationship. So what's the Maya Angelou quote, Dr. Maya Angelou? When somebody shows you who you are the first time, when somebody shows you who they are the first time, believe them. Or when somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time. How many times do we have to be like Charlie Brown and Lucy with the football, and she pulled the football up at the last minute? How many times do we have to experience that before we understand that they hate us, they hate the characters, they hate the fans, they hate the stories? How many times does that have to happen? All right. Let me show you this tweet I made about being a shill. Okay. How to be a shill account. Now, first off the bat, I know that the literal definition of the word shill, because when you're on Twitter, Black Goliath, White Tiger, Namor, all dead in adaptation, yes. When you're on Twitter, everybody's a grammar expert, everybody's a detailed expert, everybody's an expert when you're on Twitter. I know the actual definition of the word shill means being paid to promote a product. I know that. Okay, did you hear me say that? But you can still become a shill account. How to be a shill? Completely ignore the track record of content that's come before it. That's just what I was talking about. With Miss Marvel, with Kate Bishop, with the all-female Avenger shot in Endgame, with the Wasp and Ant-Man, with Captain Carter, with you name it. With She-Hulk in particular. She-Hulk was written on purpose, as confessed by the showrunner, to make fans mad. Everything about the She-Hulk TV show vibe was, I'm better than Bruce in every way. And she said it over and over and over again. How many times does that have to happen But what Shields do is they completely ignore the track record of content that's come before. They say, you know, you're just a misogynist, or you're just a hater, or you're just one all blah 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 blah, because we don't have a track record of them throwing out male characters to replace them with the female ones that are somehow magically better than them in every way. That hasn't happened. We're just making that up. Number two, think that cast reveals, teasers, and trailers are not indicative of what's to come, because they always say, you know, wait till the movie comes out, and you got people out here judging the movie before it comes out. And I have said many times, if you smell the stank coming from the pot in the kitchen, I don't have to taste the food to know that it's bad. One more time. If you smell the stank coming from the pot in the kitchen, I don't have to wait to eat the meal to know that it's bad, because people that don't know how to cook, you can tell when the food is cooking. But she'll say cast reveals, teasers, and trailers don't mean anything. Wait till the movie comes out. Wait till the movie comes out. What was the big thing with the Superman reveal? First thing we see is him broken, battered, bruised, and bloodied in the snow. That's the first image of Gun Superman that we see. But she'll say, well, that doesn't matter. You haven't seen the movie. Wait till the movie comes out. Cast reveals, teasers, and trailers are indicative of what the movie's about. Only she'll say different. Number three, think that characters has never been popular now magically become popular. They showed up 4 times in the comics, showed up 5 times in the comics. All of a sudden, that makes them somehow legit or popular or whatever. They're coming out with an Ironheart series. How many people do you think gonna watch that Ironheart series? How many people watch Ms. Marvel? How many people watch the Marvels? If Carol Danvers is just so beloved as Ms. Marvel, and Kamala Khan is just so beloved, why didn't anybody watch her TV series? Why is the Marvels one of the lowest scoring, if not the lowest grossing all-time movies in the MCU, if she's so popular? But that's not what she'll say, okay? Next up, 4, call anybody who doesn't 100% praise it a hater who hates everything. That's the one that makes me laugh the most. They say, you're just a hater. See, now, I was around when they first introduced the term hater. That was late 90s, early 2000s. I knew then that we were in trouble, because I knew what they meant by that. What they meant was you can't disagree. What they meant was they were trying to take away people's ability to dislike something. That is so stupid. I need a new word for stupid. So I knew it was stupid when I first heard it. You're just a hater. No. Disagreement and dislike is a far cry from hatred. Doesn't mean I hate the content, but I don't have to like it. When you go to a restaurant and you order a specific dish, let's say you order some salmon with broccoli and some mashed potatoes, and they bring you a steak with mixed vegetables and say, well, eat that. And you're like, well, I'm sure that's good, but that's not what I ordered. Are you just a hater? It's such a stupid term, and it's such a stupid idea behind it. And I knew it was stupid when I first heard it, that you just hate everything. I do not hate everything. That's why I started out this broadcast, this live stream, by showing you my tweet where I said, I have loved the Fantastic Four since I was a little boy. They're the group that got me into reading comics. I talk about the stuff I love all the time. Batman, the animated series, Batman as a character, Captain Marvel. I talk about stuff I love all the time. Anybody that follows me knows that I love Batman and Captain Marvel. I'm talking about Shazam, Billy Batson, not Carol Danvers. I talk about the stuff I love all the time. But Shields will say you're just a hater and you hate everything because you have to 100% praise it. See, that's mind control. I ain't a part of your cult. I ain't gonna never be a part of your cult. You better go find somebody with a weak mind. I'm not him. You don't get to tell other people what to think and feel. You don't get to tell other people what they should or should not like. You don't get to tell other people how they spend their time or their money. Does it sound like I stutter? And finally, living in a fantasy world where content can't be scrutinized, analyzed, or criticized. Just take what you're given. Just swallow this swill, just swallow this slop like a hog at the trough. That's a fantasy world, okay, where you think content can't be scrutinized or analyzed or criticized. Yes, it can. Yes, it can. Once again, that's your mind control, okay? You ain't controlling me. We have critical analysis skills for a reason. We have critical thinking for a reason. So no, I'm just not going to shut it off because you think I'm supposed to love everything they put out there. You're a shill account. Have I been in any way unclear? Okay? And so I don't care what people like this say to me ever. I don't care what you say. You and your little culty friends enjoy your mind control. I ain't a part of that. I'm going to like what I like. I'm going to analyze what I analyze. I'm going to do what I do. You don't believe nothing else I say, you better believe that. Okay, there's that. Now, let me show you my second favorite response but it's in the comics, and that comes from X Legion. So X Legion put out a tweet. Okay. So this tweet, she's still in the comics. I don't think it matters how much, to be honest. I was defending the claim that SurfHER got gender swap law. There are two different characters, point blank. X Legion says a little it does matter. You have 60 plus years of comics versus a month. I love that line. You have 60 plus years of comics versus a month. Couldn't have said it any better myself. That's the equivalent of an extra who has 2 lines in one episode of a 10-season show being made into a main character into the movie adaptation. That is such an on-point tweet. Dave T. Geek says, it wasn't one thing, it's the same thing over and over and over and over. And it deserves a big backlash at this point. That's exactly right. And people are tired of it. People are absolutely tired of it. People are tired of it. Okay, it does matter. 60 plus years of comics versus somebody that's been around for 4 or 5 appearances a month. Okay, so you watch a 10-episode show, there's an extra that got 2 lines in episode 3. So then now you make a movie that comes from the TV show or whatever, and now all of a sudden they're a main character, and all of a sudden they're so important and all that. This is an excellent tweet by X Legion because it's so true. It's so true. It does make a difference. It does make a difference, okay? Because there's lore, there's mythology, there's things that feed into the character's experience and storyline that makes the story great. When you throw all that out, you gut the gravitas, you got the emotional connection. You heard me say it before. When you make a comic book movie to please non-comic fans, you're going to please no one. When you make comic book movies to appeal to the modern audience, it's going to fail because there is no modern audience. The modern audience is just a bunch of loud keyboard warriors on Twitter. They're not people that actually have ever read comics, and they're not people that support the content, or else Ms. Marvel would have been a bigger show. The Marvels would have been a bigger movie. Captain America, Brave New World, that's another one. They went crazy on defending, but he's Captain America in the comics. He's Captain America in the comics. Really? What was the final box office tally for Captain America, Brave New World? It's down there with the Marvels. Barely over 200 million. That don't tell you nothing. If these people were real, the modern audience that want all this gender swapping, race swapping, sexuality swapping, if that was real, where are they when it's time to watch the shows and watch the movies in the theater? Dave T. Geek says, you always know that people who say it's in the comics are not comic fans. They're MCU fans trying to shut up the comic fans. And it's just a shame that it's come to this. Super Omnicron says Cap needed a comeback and Chris Evans hung up a shield he knew to get out. Okay. So this whole modern audience thing, it's ridiculously bad and untrue. Okay. Because, and so, okay, Keenan is saying, what's so sad about Marvel is we have rarely, if ever, seen in the original origin stories for anything. Everything has changed. We never get the great stories. That's right. That's right. Captain America's story was pretty close. It wasn't 100%, but it was one of the closest ones. In First Avenger, that actually is how Steve Rogers became Captain America in the comics, for the most part. There's a few tweaks in there, but he's right. Very rarely do we get to see the full thing. Okay, we've never seen the full Fantastic Four origin story on the comics, from the comics in the movies. Okay, but it does matter. It absolutely does matter because, again, if you make a movie that pleases the comic fans, it will end up pleasing everybody. What did Donner do with Reeves' Superman? He said very similar to it. He said, what would Superman be like if he were real? If he lived in the world, what would Superman be like? And Chris Reeves said Superman would be a friend. Still the greatest portrayal of the character to this day. To this day, just like Batman the Animated Series took the vibe from Batman 89 and took it to the highest peak. Okay? Okay? That's why it's still beloved to this day. Okay? Fantastic Four could have redid the origin story, but that cast, Pascal is not Reed Richards. No, he's not in any way, shape, or form. Now let me show you the best tweet I saw all day against the argument, but it's in the comics argument. And that was from Gene Gentry. Man, this tweet is so on point. So on point. So on point. So let me pull that up so you can see it. Gene Gentry said, responding to the same tweet from Reign of Pride. She said, yeah, she's in the comics, but she isn't well known. They should use the original Silver Surfer. This is what annoys me about the it's in the comics argument here. It's one-sided. When I say I want a comics accurate She-Hulk, I'm called a misogynist. When I point out that Monica Rambeau should have been Captain Marvel long before Carol Danvers, I'm derided as a hater. When I say Spider-Man is Peter Parker, I get Twitter jump for speaking objective truth. However, when a little-known and seldom featured female take on Silver Surfer makes it into the movies, suddenly, it's in the comics, it's accurate, it's a valid argument. And I did a no lies detected on that. Because that is on point. Everything Gene said is so on point. When we say we wish that the She-Hulk we got, because She-Hulk in the comics was beloved and funny and intelligent and a whole bunch of things. And she wasn't man-hating. Not that TV show. But when we say we want She-Hulk from the comics, and that's misogyny. Monica Rambeau absolutely was named Captain Marvel long before Carol Danvers, if you didn't know that. Monica Rambeau, who's been called Photon and a whole bunch of things, her first original name, she was the first original new Captain Marvel after Marvel, if you didn't know that. But then they say that we're a hater. When I say Spider-Man is Peter Parker, that's another one. They go round and round and round. How long has Peter Parker been around? Since the 60s. How long has Miles Morales been around? Just a few years. But we can't speak objective truths. Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Miles Morales is Miles Morales. Okay, but there's always, I'm telling you, these people just live on Twitter to rage bait. They don't buy comics, they don't watch TV shows, and they don't go to movie theaters. They just lay on Twitter to rage bait. Then it says, however, when a little known and seldom featured female take on Silver Surfer makes it into the movies, all of a sudden it's in the comics, is a valid argument. Perfect. Perfect. That is a perfect tweet. That is a perfect tweet. Okay. I'm reading the comments. Can't wait for Kevin Feige to be gone at this point. Maybe the next generation of producers will do better, but I've lost so much faith. And that is the point of my live stream today, where we are. We're abused. We're tired. We're tired. There's no more benefit of the doubt to give. We've been burned too many times at this point. At this point, we have been burned too many times. We know what to expect. We know it's going to be an agenda movie. We know they're going to feature Sue above Reed. We already know that Reed is stupid and incompetent and underconfident in a whole bunch of things. And the actors themselves said they're going to change the characterizations of the characters from the classic interpretations to a more modern whatever. There's that modern audience again. Okay? No one says this. The entire point of female Silver Surfer is a what if and not the comic series. Thank you very much. Twitter GIF, thank you. Okay. Now, I've heard this too. I think knowing Rad will show up later is the key to defeat Galactus. Shallow, the female surfer, replaced Rand or rebelled against Galactus. That's entirely possible. I think that you're thinking about it more than they would have. Okay, but if that happens, great. If Norrin shows up later, that's great. There's still no reason to do this because somehow they don't realize that this means there's no stakes. We're starting out from a different MCU universe, and Reed's building a bridge to come to the main MCU universe. So maybe Galactus wins in their universe, and maybe he eats that world, and that's how the Fantastic Four get here. But that means that we'll see all that, but ain't no stakes. Okay? The nerd says, they say I'm not a real comic fan. Yeah, I obsess over Stingray. That's right. Everybody's got their deep cut characters that they love that either nobody talks about or they haven't really seen anything done with them yet like they should. For me, it's the Shire Imperial Guard. Also, I love the Micronauts. You know, deep cut characters. But anyway. They move the goalposts because they don't care what it is. They are Disney Marvel brand loyalists, like people who love every iPhone. They hate comic fans and their opinions. That's right. Now, the other thing I want to say before I get out of here is, do you see that I'm not the only person saying these things? What always amazes me about people, especially people that try to Twitter jump you, is they talk like I'm talking in isolation. Can you see that a whole bunch of people are saying the same thing? It's not a mass delusion. It's just not my perception of it. If something was my perception of it, then I'd be the only one saying it. Doesn't that just stand to reason? But when you have person after person after person after person saying the same thing, that is not mass delusion. Dave T. Geek says, people keep saying that Norrin will still show up. Why do I care about a Norrin whose origin story was given to his girlfriend? That's right. That's right. How's he going to have impact if we've already seen that? Once again, stealing his thunder and giving it to a female character. For what? Okay? So the point I'm trying to make is that, okay, Stingray sounds familiar. Stingray's really, really cool. Shire Imperial Guard with Gladiator, yes. I remember in Micronauts, that was a dope comic. Hela Courier, that's right. And Bug and all of them, I love them. And Baron Karza is like a mix of Vader and Doom in the same character. Baron Karza. He's deep. But anyway, the point is that it's never just me saying this stuff. It's a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of longtime comic fans, and a bunch of normies saying the exact same thing. That there is no need to race or gender swap. Now, if you're going to pull in a character from another universe like they pulled in Fury from Ultimates, okay, that can work because a lot of what they did in Avengers was based on Ultimate Avengers. Not all. I won't even get into Wanda and Quicksilver. Don't get me started. Don't get me started into Blob eating the Wasp. Don't get me started. Don't get me started into Hydra Cap. Don't get me started. I'm saying that it needs to make a difference or have a reason. But rarely, if ever, do gender swaps in particular, race swaps most of the time, 95% of the time, because Nick Fury is an exception. He's not the rule. He's always the one that people bring up, well, Nick Fury worked, he's the exception, he's not the rule. He's not the rule. Okay, very rarely do race swaps or gender swaps make any kind of positive difference. There's no need for them. You need to tell the stories as they, now it doesn't have to be a point for point exact translation, but you need to tell the stories as they were presented in the comics. That's why they're popular. That's why they survived. You understand that? I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. I get comment after comment like that on Twitter. You've seen in the comics here today. So what if they introduce Ironheart first? Before we met Tony Stark, what if we met Ironheart first? Is that the same story? What if we met Captain Carter first before we meet Steve Rogers? Is that the same story? What if we met Jane Foster Thor, Mighty Thor, which is so stupid because Thor is his name. It's not a title or a mantle. What if we met her first? What if the first movie was about Natalie Portman, Jane Foster Thor, and not Chris Hemsworth Thor? Is that still the same? So in conclusion, I just want to say, in reviewing this Fantastic Four trailer, I'm going to see it for discussion and review purposes, but I'm not excited about it. From the beginning, the casting has been off. The actors themselves said the characterizations are off. Ben doesn't sound like Ben. I don't know what's going on with Johnny. Okay. Okay. I say after Secret Wars, give the MCU a half a decade break. Yeah, they should have done that actually after Endgame, or they should have said everything after Endgame is multiverse, alternate universes. But anyway, I don't have any excitement going into this movie. Ben don't sound like Ben. Reed and Sue are older than they need to be. Franklin's probably going to save the day. I don't know what's up with Johnny. He feels immature in a junior high school kind of way. And female Silver Surfer, we just went through that for what? For what? So this is going to be another specific to this movie version of the Fantastic Four. Okay, and so we'll see, because the two big movies this summer, Fantastic Four First Steps and Superman, have to work. They have to work. Now, I like this right here. They need to bring comic books back to gas stations. More importantly, retros. Kids need to read more, and grocery stores. Okay? And grocery stores. You can get some free comics at the library to read. Your local library has a comic section that you can read for free. Okay? So that's it for this live stream about SurfHER. You know, again, there's no benefit of the doubt left to give. So we just have to see how this plays out. So thanks to all of you that joined me on this live stream. Thanks to all of you that are leaving me some comments live in real time. Also, leave your comments below, those of you that are watching the replay, because I definitely want to hear from you. What do you think about what we talked about? What do you think about gender swapping characters? What do you think about female Silver Surfer? What do you think about this trailer? What do you think about what they're presenting us of the Fantastic Four? How do you think this is going to pan out? I definitely want to hear from you. Okay? That's it. I will see you next week, same time, 10 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time, for my next live weekly comics chat. DG2 Comics Chat. Out.